Recently I found myself speaking to a group of students and talking about how education can really create a new pathway. And a story about myself and being 15 years old, just like them, and experiencing homelessness. And little did I know that with persistence, with resiliency, I would be able to stand before them as a deputy superintendent in Boston Public Schools. And so I think my story of one in which you have pathways of opportunity and access is not something that can just happen. It requires a group of very committed people to think creatively, but think with purpose on what it is that we're trying to achieve. And for me, it's always been about opening the doors for others, because I know I am the exception, but I want to be the rule. And so how do we make sure that every student gets that opportunity? Born and raised in Los Angeles, of immigrant parents from El Salvador and Mexico. My family is one in which, we had a lot of strengths in both culture and language, which I'm quite proud of. But there was also a lot of challenges in our family, and so that really formed how I began to think about the work that I wanted to commit my life to, which was in service of community. And education created that pathway for me. And so I became a teacher myself, a special education teacher. And I also found in that pathway that I met a lot of parents and families who wanted great things for their kids. And together, how working together, we were able to identify what those things were that would change the trajectory for their kids. And so it again began to ignite something in me to say, so what are the structures in schooling that sometimes keep our kids and our families from being able to do that? And that directed me to a pathway of administration. And so for the past 20 years, I have spent my time working in schools, working with children, working with teachers and school leaders on solving what could be some very basic issues for some of us to think about, but what we find, because we are talking about kids, we are talking about community, it's much more complex. But I've been quite excited about digging into that. At the center of this work is deep interest in improving outcomes for kids. I think you meet teachers, you meet principals, you meet other superintendents. That is always at the forefront of what people want to be able to create impact and change in. I think for myself, though, my story is one in which I understand what many of our students in our schools, especially in urban school systems, what they're experiencing. And that is one in which sometimes the things that we want to be able to control, they're outside of our control. And so when they come to school or when they're engaged in educational experiences, I want to make sure that what's at the forefront for them is being able to now have choice, have agency, be able to change the trajectory of their life. And I know education did that for me, and I want to make sure I can do that for kids.